The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And people in, what's it called? Ether world.
Zoom.
Hear me okay?
Zoom
Give
land.
me a thumbs up. The sound's working. Okay, good. So I can see you on the screen that's in front of me, and you can't see the screen that's in front of me because there's a camera looking at me and it's over the screen. But the people in the congregation here at Hokyoji, the symbol, can see you on a big screen that you can't see that's above me. So we're all together in a certain kind of way. Couple of technical issues. Can you move that clock a little better so I can see? I didn't bring that. Okay.
Is that right?
That'll be okay, kind of. I have another technical issue. I didn't wash my mask, so it's all blurry. I'm going to take it off. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. That helps. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay, thank you. Myo-O and I titled this sesshin as a theme of equanimity, finding our way home. We're at Hokyoji for the past almost year. We've been studying the Brahma Viharas. Brahma Viharas means the divine dwellings or divine abodes. And there's essentially 4 of them. One's called boundless friendliness, one's called compassion, one's called joy, and one's called equanimity. Today I'm going to essentially be talking about boundless friendliness. Tomorrow Myo-O's taking up the subject of compassion, and then I'll be talking about joy on Friday, and Myo-O will be talking about equanimity on Saturday. So I want to particularly welcome the folks out there on Zoom land, and I hope you have a situation where you're getting the support you need to do this sesshin. I haven't done a sesshin on Zoom land, so I'm not quite sure how that would work for me. but I hope it's going okay for you. Okay. Here at Hokyoji, there's 7 of us, and it seems to be going pretty well, from what I can tell. We have a Tenzo who's been cooking us very nice food. And so in the design of this Sesshin that we're doing, I think you can see, relative to a lot of Sesshins, it's not a particularly intense Sesshin as far as the number of periods of Zazens we're doing. It's about 8 a day plus the Dharma talk. Well, that was by design because we felt that, number one, trying to support people on Zoom, maybe a lesser number of periods of Zazen would work better. And number two, maybe this is more important, that it seems like we've been, this year, almost from the beginning of the year, been under a lot of extra stress this year. I'm just going to acknowledge that. 3 that come to my mind are, of course, COVID situation, a lot of the racial tension that we've experienced this year, and last but far not least, all the political stuff that's going on that seems to not end. So we thought, let's just relax with this session, settle into it, do what we can do. A few less sittings, but maybe we can really concentrate on making those sittings quality sittings. We had a combined in-person and Zoom session in August, of which Reiren Gombo and Daigaku Rume were co-teachers with me. And one morning, Reiren made the remark, and it's been my experience as well, that the first couple of days of Sesshin can be kind of rough, a little rough, trying to adjust physically and mentally, psychologically, to just sitting still. And then the next day I was quite relieved that Daigaku said the same thing. I'm not sure I know a person who's probably sat more 7-day sessions in my whole life than Daigaku. And the way I calculated it out, and I might be totally wrong, so don't quote me on this, maybe 222 7-day sessions. He started when he was 23, and I think he's still done some, but I know he left Hoshinji around when he was 60. So that's like 37 years of doing 6 week-long sessions a year. So that comes out 222. Now, I don't know if he actually did them all, but... And he said, no matter how many sessions you've done, the first couple days are rough. He even said that here. And that's been my experience too. The mind takes... it just takes a while to settle down, to get used to this sitting still. In my experience, I used to struggle a lot with that and try to, say, settle down, settle down. But now I don't try anymore because I know that there's just nothing I can do directly. There's nothing I can say, settle the mind down, Ron. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Do it. If you could do such a thing, wouldn't that be wonderful? Maybe it would be. I don't know what it would be like, but we just can't do it by a kind of direct effort saying, okay, now I'm going to be quiet. It just doesn't work. We can only just steadily attend to what's arising in our mind and everything that comes. I'm going to read a passage from the Mindfulness Sutra. It's quite a moving passage for me. But I think it's very plain and simple, but for me it's very helpful. This is what the Buddha says on contemplation of the mind. And how does a practitioner abide contemplating mind as mind? Here a practitioner understands mind affected by lust as mind affected by lust, and mind unaffected by lust as mind unaffected by lust. Understands mind affected by hate as mind affected by hate, and mind unaffected by hate as mind unaffected by hate. Understands mind afflicted by delusion as mind affected by delusion, and mind unaffected by delusion as mind unaffected by delusion. Understands contracted mind as contracted mind, and distracted mind as distracted mind. Understands exalted mind as exalted mind, and unexalted mind as unexalted mind. Understands suppressed mind, or surpassed mind as surpassed mind, and unsurpassed mind as unsurpassed mind. Understands concentrated mind as concentrated mind, and unconcentrated mind as unconcentrated mind. Understands liberated mind as liberated mind, and unliberated mind as unliberated mind. So that's what we can do. It's not so direct. It's just about the awareness of mindfulness. In other words, what's arising. And what I really appreciate about this passage is it doesn't seem like he's making any judgments about it. He says, even lust, he says, understands lustful mind, affected by lustful mind. And mind not affected by lust, not affected by it. Just understands that awareness, mindfulness of that. And goes through all the different kind of levels. They kind of go up to a more exalted state. But what I really appreciate is it's not a sense of evaluation or a sense that I have to get rid of this or get rid of that. It's just we understand. So that's the only practice I can do in the first couple of days of Sesshin. Just see all the arising of all these things. And you're just aware of it. Just aware of it. Not trying to get rid of one thing and get another thing. And not to just continually chase after something. I've been studying a koan for the past, year. It's when we started studying the Brahma Viharas last winter practice period in January. And we watched a video, and we were on the studying the I think it was Metta, boundless compassion, or friendliness, boundless friendliness, kindness. And I think you all know, and I don't know when I first heard this, it must have been many years ago, that I'm sure you've all heard that Dalai Lama said, "My religion is kindness." And when I first heard it, I kind of was like, well, geez, I'm a nice guy, so, I don't need to. But I didn't realize at the time that I really wasn't all that nice, at least not all the time. So the koan, and it was brought up in the lecture by, who was the man? Woman is Christina Feldman.
Chris Cullen.
Chris Cullen?
Yeah.
So Christina Feldman and Chris Cullen did a video together, 90 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Chris brought up the Zen koan, number 14 from the Blue Cliff Record, where one of you have to look, says you men, one of his disciples approached him while he was at the very near end of his life and asked, "What is the teaching of an entire lifetime?" And you men responded, "An appropriate response." I've also heard this translated as an appropriate statement, but I kind of lean toward response. A statement would be okay as long as it's very broad, just an action, not just words, but an action. So I've been examining this koan quite closely since then, and it's not like a lot of Zen koans, that like leave you baffled, like what are they talking about? It's quite simple. However, if we look at it with some depth, we see just how deep that goes. I mean, just think of all the things at all times. How do you make the most appropriate response? It's so vast. It can be a simple greeting to a person, a cashier in a store, when they say, "Have a nice day." Well, how do you respond appropriately? It's so simple, and it can be so complicated, like how do you make a appropriate response to a very difficult family member? That's when it gets tough. Or how do we respond appropriately to our environment, or to all of the social problems we're having? And also, how do you make an appropriate response to someone who has a very different political view than you do? It's such a wide range. I'm going to read a passage from a book. There's a group of a few people and I who do a study group. And this is a book, The Eightfold Path, written by 8 women, and an introduction by Bjorken, Judith Regier. 5 of the 8 I know personally. And what I'd like to read for you right now is actually a section from Right Action that Shodo Spring wrote, and she's with us right here. So it's a very nice piece of writing. I'm going to read just a quote she put in the book for right now from Katagiri Roshi. It's under Right Action, and the subtitle is Buddha's Compassion. So she writes, in returning to silence, Katagiri Roshi spoke about the compassion of the Buddha's world. All sentient beings are allowed to live and are, from the beginning, forgiven for living their lives in this world. Everything, whatever it is, has some reason why it exists. Evil, good, even something neither evil nor good. You cannot destroy devils just because you don't like them. Even though you don't like monsters, still there is some reason why they exist. Everything is entitled to live in this world in peace and harmony, beyond our judgment, our evaluation. This is the first condition we have to realize. Everything is Buddha. So, not infrequently do I have dreams about monsters. They're usually trying to eat me alive, or at least eat one of my limbs. And I get kind of horrified and upset. But it's like I don't mind, because sometimes I know I'm in a dream, and then I can wake up and I say, oh, it wasn't real. It was just my imagination, so I can feel good. Feel okay. But monsters, or devils, or demons, to see devils or demons? Devils, are around all the time. However, I think they mostly exist in our mind. In our great vows, we say beings are numberless. I vow to free them. And that's a little hard for me to comprehend. So, the way it makes sense for me is if I think of all the beings inside of me, all the ugly ones, all the ones that disturb me. They have a right to be there. So if I can just let them live there, recognize they're there, be aware that they're there, I can actually free them from just, it seems like they need to be there for some reason or another. I don't understand it. But all I have to do is just acknowledge it's there, whether it be hatred or something else. It seems if I can free my own demons like that, it's easier for me to be with other people who might have their own demons. And just, we can work together to set all these beings free. Now, I remember once somebody said, I think in response to something like this, that Katagiri Roshi said, well, what about people who murder people? Murder other people or commit, I don't think they actually said it that way. They said, what about people who do really awful things to other people? Katagiri Roshi's response was, well, sometimes if you do certain things, you have to go and sit in jail for a while. Maybe forever, depending how bad it is. So it's not denying that we can't be that we need to be accountable for our actions. Can you tell me when did I schedule this to end? Was it?
11.
Yeah, there's a break at 11.
11. Well, I've given about 4 Zoom lectures this past year, and I've heard a couple, and it seems like 40 minutes or 50 minutes is a little long for a Zoom talk. So if anyone has a comment or a statement about anything I've said, I'll invite you to share that right now. We might have about 15 minutes left. I can go on a little more if no one has a comment. But does anyone have anything they want to ask? Yes, Ekyo.
What is,
Here, just a second.
Yes,
We got the other microphone.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
gonna.
we're good on sound.
No, take hands around for questions.
We can do that. The camera mic is also on, but go ahead. Yep, go ahead and turn that on.
We're
Just hold it.
so can you tell me what, I appreciate your talk, and I've always been very moved by.
Can you take your mask off for? I didn't put my hearing aids in. So.
Oh, okay. I've always been very moved by that quote from Katagiri Roshi. And I think I said this before, that I've often felt like, you know, maybe I'm the monster, you know? Maybe that's me, so that maybe that's a part of me. But I want to ask you, what does what you said so far have to do with boundless friendliness?
Well, yeah, good question. I think it's boundless friendliness. To me, it's like we have to be friendly to these monsters inside of us first, or all the things we don't like about ourselves, or whatever we think shouldn't be there. For me, that's creating a kind of a friendliness and openness to whatever's inside of us. no one can know, I think for sure, but it seems like if we can do that for ourselves, it makes it easier to do for others. If we're really like inside of ourselves, like things shouldn't be like they are, the way inside, then we're probably going to project that on others too. That's just my experience. So the boundless friendliness, kindness, is being kind first starts with ourselves. That might be the most difficult place to start.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else see the?
Bill has a question.
Yeah, Bill.
Bill, try.
Bill, you have to unmute if you're not unso.
Can you hear me? Dokai, can you hear me?
Still not getting.
No.
Can you hear? I think I'm unmuted. Yeah. Can you hear me?
We're not getting your sound.
Well, that's too bad. Okay.
I can hear you, Bill.
Sign
Maybe you can
language?
Turn your volume up.
You can type it into
Can
the.
you turn your volume up a bit?
Okay, I have. I'm all the way up.
Okay, you're up. We're here. You now.
It was me,
It was our
for the
fault.
records.
Our fault. Aaron's fault.
Good.
Well,
Turn
turn it down then.
I was
I was wondering if you could connect to the statements that you made in your talk for me. I, for a long time, have I've thought that the point of Zen practice is to learn how to respond appropriately. So I was that koan that you were talking about. I was wondering if you could connect it to those inner demons.
Oh, I think it's connected to Ekio's question.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's like, okay, but you know, we can say an internal and external world. Let's say my internal world is just myself having trouble with myself for some reason. So an appropriate response, well, how do I respond to things that are difficult inside of me that I'm experiencing? Do you beat yourself up? Do you try harder? Do you be gentle? No. Actually, the Buddha says there's many different ways. He doesn't always say just be gentle. He sometimes says, well, sometimes you have to bear down and just work through stuff. But so it's like, it depends. I think that's what I think, why the appropriate response is never just one thing. It's sometimes you have to buckle down and do something. Sometimes you have to relax. Okay, but so to get to your question, how does appropriate response? What was it?
Just the relation, there were two statements in there, which I both responded to, but it seemed like there was a fruitful space in how the two were interconnected. Like the question of appropriate response seems quite deep to me, and not so simple, and yet also simple.
Mm-hmm.
Those demons make life pretty complicated.
They do make it. Yeah. It seems like they can. And yet they can make it complicated, internally or externally. I have it seems like since I started teaching, more often than not, the day before a sesshin, or 2 days, something difficult arises in my life. It's like, I don't know why, but it's like something comes up and I'm thinking, why does this have to happen now? Why couldn't it have happened after session? And then so it kind of gets me all kind of rattled. And But the more I look at it, it's just like, well, this is, we could say karma. It's just, this is what's coming up. And this time it was a difficult relationship with a family member. And I only have one of them, so you know. That's so, anyway, but I won't name names. But anyway, I mean, this one was pretty difficult, more than usual. But anyway, beyond that, yeah, but that's what happens. And like I say, there can be someone who you get into a difficult conversation about some political idea or political something or another. And that might be difficult, but usually it's not so difficult as a difficult thing with a family member or your husband or a child or something like that. It's difficult. Those things go kind of deep. Your spouse. So anyway, did I address that question or not, Bill?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yeah. Kind of.
It's a pretty open question. So, yes, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Anybody else have a comment?
Okay. This is Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Maybe what I'm hearing is that in Zazen we have the opportunity to be friendly with whatever demons might show up or other qualities that might show up or whatever shows up.
Mm-hmm.
In our life outside of Zazen, you might have to do other things. Other things might be appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. That's why the range is so vast with appropriate response. However, I think that what we do in Zazen can really help us navigate more complicated circumstances. I mean, we do Zazen and we set it up in such a way that we're trying to really simplify things because we realize living in the world as a human being is really quite complicated. There's a lot of things. So we set up a situation where we try to make things as simple as possible. All we're doing is sitting down, facing a blank wall, and that's it. You know, for a certain period of time. But then we see all the different kind of things that come up. So if we can start just with that Zazen activity of just allowing things to be patient and have a magnanimous mind, a kind and friendly mind to whatever is coming up. Just like the Buddha is saying, even if my mind is unconcentrated, well, I'm just aware that my mind is unconcentrated. A distracted mind, a contracted mind. You know, all the things we can experience. In a sense, we can say there's an internal world and an external world, but really, where do you make the line? I mean, we can, of course, say, make lines, but sometimes they're really quite arbitrary. And so we need to carry whatever friendliness or equanimity that we experience in our Zazen out into the world, wherever we go, and all circumstances that we encounter. Is that okay, Alan? Okay.
I have a
Yeah.
comment. I was listening to a talk by Christina Feldman. It wasn't on the Brahma Viharas, but she was talking about the mind's tendency towards proliferation.
Proliferation.
And we all know that because
We
as
love
soon as
that
you
word.
sit
I
down,
love that
boy,
word.
the mind
Mental proliferation.
what she pointed out from the Buddha's teaching was that this tendency is not to be overcome. It's to be understood.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it might be better.
And so I thought that was very profound for me, that these things, understanding that you have this type of mind or this type of mind, or this is present or that is not present, that to investigate and understand these tendencies, and the Buddha always talked about Mara coming and visiting, and those are the little demons that show up, and some of them are very subtle and some of them aren't subtle at all. But to understand that this is going on allows for transformation, whereas if you don't really understand it and you try to overcome it, you just hit a brick wall, it seems.
Yeah.
So I found that very helpful, that some things are not to be overcome, they're just to be understood.
Right.
Which leads to liberation.
Yeah, that's what I like about the Mindfulness Sutra. I think it's just where just understands this. Could be any kind of mind. I mean, he uses a certain, but it could be the proliferating mind. I understand the proliferating mind as the proliferating mind. I mean, you're just aware of it. That what doesn't work is if we just keep proliferating and never stop. And what else doesn't work if we try to squash it down? Just like you're saying, there's causes and conditions why this is coming up. So you just have to I think, focus your awareness on the arising. I'll read one other little passage. We're getting toward the end now. This is this is the paragraph after the other one I just read. In this way, the practitioner contemplating mind as mind internally, or abides contemplating mind as mind externally, or both internally and externally, or abides contemplating mind its arising factors, or abides contemplating vanishing factors. Or that is just mindfulness that there is mind, simply established to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and mindfulness. So, what is most interesting to me is contemplating is arising and vanishing too. It's like mental proliferation. Oh, it's arising, and if you become aware of it, it can vanish. So, and the more we actually become aware of it, you can see sometimes they're right together. I mean, the arising is like so minute. And there's, whoop, there it is. Then the vanish. But that's comes, with practice and also not, and just a very subtle, gentle awareness of looking at it, become aware of it. And again, that can extend to our external world as well. In our relationships with people, have a difficult conversation, you can see it, the arising, whoop, there's that thing coming up again. It helps us from just going into a reactionary mode. Well, we've reached the end of our time for today's talk, so I wanted to thank you for your kind attention. Thank you all so much. Closing chants.
May our intention equally penetrate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma